Hey there, I'm Neil Adams, and you're watching Sequentially Yours, and it's all about comic books.
Hey there, welcome to Sequentially Yours, initially mine. This is a show where we look at this week's number ones and tell you which ones are worth getting out of bed for, which ones you should just pull up the covers. And man, whoa, what a week this has been. That's painful. This is what it must be like to be an MST3K writer. Man, I got, let me tell you, cool cats, I got 5 books this week. And I'm kind of cheating to get a best one because all of them are about equally bad in their own unique ways. But let's get to them and see what came out on top. Alright, so, book 1 for this week is Ab Irato. This is what you would get if somebody who was a big fan of William Gibson decided to write The Matrix. So much so that there's actually a scene where one of the terrorist people is basically Trinity, black coat and all, doing the same kind of escape from the beginning of the Matrix. It's a little ridiculous. But we also have to keep in mind that this is if a fan of William Gibson made the Matrix and decided to make it about the least interesting person in the Matrix. Because our main character is just a dude who's come to Montreal because he wants to get in with the big city. Oh man, there are a couple of good ideas in here, but again, they all feel like they've been recycled from a Gibson book. Coffin Motels, for example. Sort of a cyberpunk aesthetic to it, but with a bit of a grungy film to make it more modern. Because browns and grays need to be the thing right now. I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on this particular story, because there's not much to it. We get through the whole thing, and about the best thing that it does is, toward the very end, it starts to humanize our terrorist character that we saw a little bit, but not much. We know that she's doing something for some reason, but we don't know what or why, or, she seems to be very upset that her picture got caught on cameras on the news, and she didn't seem particularly interested in avoiding attention, so I'm wondering why this is a big deal, but I'm not wondering enough that I want to keep reading. So, let's just move on, shall we? No reason to beat this dead horse. Besides, we've got other dead horses that clearly need a whooping. Okay, moving on. Blood Bowl, more guts, more glory. I'm not sure how many of you around my age used to watch a Saturday morning cartoon called Monster League. It was a licensed property from Monster League Football, a video game at the time, which was not very good. But you know what? I ate that show up. It was incredibly dumb. It's about, in the future, a catastrophe happens and the world goes spiraling into hell, and suddenly there's monsters everywhere and they play sports. That's a thing. I mean, there's humans, and the humans watch the monsters playing sports. The main character of the show was a burly skeleton. No, not that burly skeleton. That burly skeleton. Whose father was also a burly skeleton, but they were both human at one point. Basically, the opening theme shows the father being transformed into a skeleton in front of his son's eyes, and then I guess the son turned into one later. It was dumb because they had to both have him traumatically watch his father transform and traumatically transform. That way he was double traumatized. I don't know, it was the 90s. What do you want from me? But we're not here to talk about Monster League. We're here to talk about Blood Bowl, which is basically the same concept. It's, what if football were incredibly violent, more so than usual, and but instead of monsters, it's a fantasy setting, so you still get a decent amount of monsters, but you also get, dwarves and stuff. and the main character was a star Blood Bowl player. It's football. It's American football, but they call it Blood Bowl. Ugh. He was a star player, and then something happened, and then he became a drunk, and then he just got re-recruited because apparently he's still really, really good. And I guess in the Blood Bowl, owners don't like making money on really, really good players. They had to get rid of him for reasons. Or maybe he was just secretly good. Maybe that was the thing. I don't know. It's the reason why I brought up Monster League is because I feel like whoever wrote this or conceived of this and created it has some subconscious memories of Monster League and basically just wanted to redo this Saturday morning cartoon that he probably enjoyed as a kid. And instead we ended up with this thing that is mildly anachronistic. The humor doesn't quite land. It feels like they're stretching for every joke. The action is subsumed by their attempts at humor. I don't know what a magic sponge is, but that keeps coming up. Um, people are frequently trampled. The opposing team are always orcs. Always, just always big green orcs. Like no matter what the opposing team is, it's always a team of big green orcs, and I'm wondering like why? Like how many teams of big green orcs do they have? Who is creating the lineups and the matchups as a result? The ending of it hints at the idea of a larger plot to make sure that the main character never finishes the season, which was also taken right out of Monster League. Why are you making me keep referencing that stupid Saturday morning cartoon that I loved as a kid? Why? Why? But yeah, there's a conspiracy of people determined to make sure that he never finishes the season. They don't like an underdog team, I guess. And he's playing for an underdog team, but it's an underdog team that all it needed was one dude to tell them, "Hey, do the thing you're good at." Like, "Hey, you have a hook for a hand. Impale the ball on your hook hand. That way you can't fumble it." Genius! Genius! Yeah, so Blood Bowl. It was a thing, and I read it. And we're done here. Okay, moving on. What else do I have here? Animal Jam. Okay, apparently this is based on a game. I haven't played it, but it looks like it's based on a game because it has a weird art style that doesn't seem to fit into comics and doesn't imply comic motion. Alright, so this, I will say, is probably the least outright offensively bad one of the bad ones. It doesn't feel like it's screwing around with me. It doesn't feel like it's trying to cheat me or pretend to be something else. It doesn't feel cynical. But as a result, it's just, a funny animal comic, but there's nothing to it. And the fact of the matter is that I might have given something like this a pass when I was growing up. But today there are so many good bits of children's media out there that something that just kind of lazily dangles a bunch of colorful animals in front of a child and gives them a lesson seems like a waste of time. Also, there's one part where they like roll a giant boulder into the bad guys, which I guess are called shadows, and look sort of like flying, one-eyed, four-armed squids. But they roll into it, and somebody says "strike," and I'm like, "Why do your funny cartoon animals know what bowling is?" Nobody really seems to know what they want to do with this. They know that they want it to be about a koala bear who was chosen to save everybody by the gods of his people by being kind. Which, okay, you know what? Message of kindness and togetherness, and it's not great children's media, but again, it's not offensively bad. It's just I expect so much more from kids shows in the post Avatar world. You know, it's I mean I've read Princeless. Princeless is about the same same age bracket for this as this, and it is drastically better. I don't like seeing kids being talked down to. That's what's going on here. All right, moving on again. Packless. Packless? Peakless? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I'm going to say Packless. Packleys. I'm going to say it however I feel like in the moment. Packleys is a new image book, and it appears to be largely a kind of serialized place for several different stories, but I'm pretty sure all of the stories are written by the same person with different art styles to it, which, okay, I can buy into that concept. I mean, it's interesting. The problem is, of the 3 stories, 2 of them are dumb. 2 of them are just dumb. The first one, apparently, the author, and I hate to say this, I really do, I don't want to be mean, but the first one, apparently the author has been rolling around in his head since he was a kid, and it's about as Kafkaesque as you can get, in that it's about a guy who thinks he might be a cockroach, and everybody around him might be cockroaches too. It's very head trippy. I see what he was trying to do, but the sort of through line, the emotional through line of it doesn't follow. The character doesn't have any sort of growth or reaction to this. They just are up and down depending on what the scene needs. Am I a bug? Am I a human? What does it matter? It doesn't, unless it does. Um, that it's just I found it kind of gross to read because it's a bunch of cockroaches, and I don't like cockroaches. I have a cat who kills them for me when I don't get around to it myself. It's just the way it is. So yeah, it just that story didn't work for me. The closing story just felt so rushed, and it felt like there was supposed to be a character connection there that the author never bothered to make. So I didn't buy it. The middle story is actually pretty good. It's about a guy dealing with the loss of his father and heading out to explore a place where his father was and possibly bring him back. We're not sure exactly what's going on yet, but the story was very laser focused on the relationship between those two and why this guy feels it necessary to go out and find his dad. So, at the very least, that one worked, but all in all, Packless just did not work for me. I'm sure it'll work for some people, but it's the Inland Empire of comics for me at the moment. There are going to be people who think it's brilliant. I think that's ridiculous. Okay. We've gotten through all of the bad ones. Today, now we're going to talk about the number 1 book for this week. And there was one that I actually really, really enjoyed, but I'm bending the rules a little bit because it's kind of not a first issue. It all came out as one basically graphic novel, split into 3 books over the course of the books. I'm going to talk about it as if it were a first issue, even though there's probably no hope of it continuing and no need for it to continue. It is a complete story, and one that I don't think needs to be delved back into. But it's called Children of Saigo. The basic concept behind Children of Saigo is at the Battle of Shirayama, where essentially the last few samurai ended up losing and ending their rebellion against the incoming Meiji government. One samurai was told by his commander to run, to start a family, to raise them in the ways of Bushido so that the samurai won't be dead, because that's what will happen after this. So he does, and many years later, We have the descendants of that samurai in the Iwawara. Iwawaru? I can't remember the name of the family, unfortunately. I'll put it down here. Yeah, their family. There are 4 of them, one of which is the biological son of the father, Mike. His son is Shiro. And then Mike also had 3 adopted children, Benjamin, Zoe, and Tehran. And essentially he raised them all to revere Bushido, and not in the sort of Americanized way that we're used to in films and TV, but in a very kind of down-to-earth way. And basically, the story focuses on assassins from a Yakuza clan trying to take out this family because one of them is a little bit crazy and decided that she wants to take out the descendants of this what is perceived to be a traitor guy, samurai who ran away from battle. And you know what? It works because it's largely a family drama. It is about these people and their interactions. We don't see much from Mike because he is on his deathbed with stomach cancer, but we get to see the 4 kids who are, adult. I say kids, but they're all adults. We get to see them interacting with one another and how their lives have gone and how they've taken their father's lessons and adapted it to their lives. It's a really good comic. I mean, the best thing I can say is that it creates these believable characters who are trying to achieve a measurable goal. It doesn't overdo things. There are fight scenes, but there aren't a whole lot of them. It doesn't try to inflate the the stakes to enormous heights. It's not about saving the world. It's about one family trying to deal with this problem that is caused by a legacy that some of them don't even fully embrace. It's kind of great to read. Even the first even the first book of this, because again, it's split into 3 books, does what it's supposed to do. It establishes the world, it tells us what is normal, it shows us something becoming abnormal, and it gives us characters that we care about, and there's a clear delineation on who they are and what they want. It's actually very, very simple to do, but also incredibly complicated. Suffice it to say, though, I feel that Children of Saigo, if it has a weakness, which it has a few, yes, but if it has, I'd say its greatest weakness is that ultimately, the villain's kind of just there because she's crazy, and that seems like a bit of a cop-out. It's easy to just say, they're crazy, that's why they're doing something ridiculous. But it doesn't explain why her father, who is the head of a Yakuza family, doesn't stop her and seems to be actively supporting her. He's not crazy. She's a little nuts. He is clearly has full grasp of his faculties. But otherwise, yeah, the art on this is, simple but beautifully done. The coloring is excellent. Even the word balloons are really well put. The lettering, all of that is well put together. I highly recommend Children of Saigo. It's worth the money, and it's, 80 pages worth of comic to read. That will keep you engaged from beginning to end. Alright, so that was this week. That was this week. I hope next week is better. In the meantime, though, let's talk about the oddly incongruous theme for the week. And there was one. Oh, was there one. Alright, this week's oddly incongruous theme is... stupid names. Every book but Children of Saigo had dumb names. Here, let me give you some examples, because I wrote them down here just so that we could get them. Real Beauregard, Cytrons, Amnia, Nilka, Peck, Greeley, Dreng Sternblood, Hogan Hellhammer. There are more. Those are just the ones that flipping through, I picked out. Wow, these names. I mean, it kept me entertained at least. Trying to drag myself through all those. Okay. So, anyway, that's it for this week. Hope to see you guys next week where, again, hopefully, something better. In the meantime, keep enjoying comics, and take care. I know what you're thinking. How can I help Karu buy a death ray and secure myself a place on the list of people who will probably be saved? Well, fear not. You can make that dream come true by donating only $1 or $2 to our Patreon, which will also make you eligible for fabulous prizes! If you can't contribute financially, please consider liking this video, subscribing, and especially sharing with your friends. It costs you nothing and goes a long way toward helping the channel grow, reaching new people who, like you, think that comics are literature. Thank you.